1972.
The United States is a powder keg. The Vietnam War is raging, and President Richard Nixon is gearing up for a re-election campaign that will eventually lead to the greatest political scandal in history, Watergate. But while the FBI was busy tracking protesters, a crew of professional thieves from Youngstown, Ohio, was tracking something else. A rumor. A whisper in the underworld that Nixon had a slush fund, $30 million in illegal campaign bribes, stashed away in a quiet, unassuming bank in Laguna Niguel, California. The target? The United California Bank. The goal? To pull off the biggest cash heist in American history. Not because they hated the government, but because of a brilliant piece of criminal logic. You can't report a theft if the money you lost was stolen in the first place. Today, we're going inside the vault to see how 7 men bypassed state-of-the-art security, spent 3 days drilling through concrete, and how a single unwashed dish led to their ultimate downfall. Every great heist needs a brain. This one belonged to Amil Dinsio. Amil wasn't your average street thug. He was a precision engineer of crime. Back in Ohio, he had already gained a reputation for being able to crack any vault in the country. To Amil, a bank wasn't a fortress, it was a puzzle. He assembled a family crew, his brother James, his nephew Harry, and a few trusted associates like Phil Christopher. They weren't just thieves, they were experts in explosives, alarms, and logistics. But California was a long way from home. To pull this off, they needed to be ghosts. They flew into Orange County under aliases and rented a quiet townhouse just a few miles from the bank. For weeks, they didn't party, they didn't go out. They watched, they timed the guard shifts, they mapped the roof, and most importantly, they studied the United California Bank's alarm system. It was a silent sentry system connected directly to the local police station. If so much as a fly kicked a sensor, the cops would be there in 3 minutes. But Amil had a secret weapon. Something you'd find in a local hardware store, not a spy movie. Friday night, March 24th. The bank closes for the weekend. The crew arrives on the roof. Step 1. Neutralize the alarm. Instead of cutting wires, which would trigger a failsafe, Amil used styrofoam surfboard repair spray. They drilled a tiny hole into the alarm housing and filled the entire casing with the expanding foam. The foam hardened around the clappers and the bells. The electronics were still on, telling the police station everything was fine, but the physical ability for the alarm to make a sound was dead. Next came the hot work. They used 16 sticks of dynamite to blast through the reinforced concrete roof. But they didn't just blow it up. They used heavy moving pads to muffle the explosion. To anyone walking by, it sounded like a distant car backfire. They lowered themselves into the vault. It was a scene from a dream. Rows and rows of safe deposit boxes. Thousands of them. For the next 48 hours, the crew lived inside that vault. They used high-powered hydraulic jacks to pop the boxes like soda cans. They ignored the jewelry. They ignored the documents. They were looking for the Nixon money. Large, unmarked stacks of cold, hard cash. By Sunday night, they had cracked over 500 boxes. The floor was ankle-deep in paper and gold. They stuffed $12 million into heavy bags. That's over $80 million in today's value. They climbed back out the roof, scrubbed the townhouse, and flew back to Ohio. They had won. Or so they thought. When the bank opened on Monday morning, the manager described the vault as looking like a war zone. The FBI was called in immediately. This wasn't a local job. This was professional. The lead investigators were stumped. There were no shells, no tools left behind, and the foam trick had completely bypassed the technology of the time. But the FBI did what they do best. They checked every unusual event in the area from the past month. They found a report of a similar burglary in Ohio. The MO was identical. Then, they got a break. A neighbor near the crew's rented townhouse mentioned seeing a group of men who didn't look like locals driving a tan Oldsmobile. The FBI swarmed the townhouse. The crew had cleaned it top to bottom with industrial cleaner. It was spotless, almost. Inside the dishwasher, there was one single solitary dinner plate. It had been missed in the final scan. When the forensics team dusted it, they found a perfect print belonging to Harry Dinsio. The ghost crew finally had names. Within months, the FBI tracked them back to Youngstown. The money began appearing in local banks, and the crew started buying luxury cars and houses. The perfect heist was being undone by the simplest human errors: sloppy cleanup and greed. Most of the crew was caught and sentenced to decades in prison. Amil Dinsio never gave up the full story. But the biggest question remains: where was the $30 million? The crew claimed they only found $12 million, but they were convinced the president's box was there. Some historians believe the crew actually missed the secret stash, while others think Nixon's people moved the money just days before the heist. Ironically, just a few months after the heist, the Watergate scandal broke. The very dirty money the Dinsio crew was looking for became the center of the investigation that took down the presidency. In the end, Amil Dinsio pulled off the greatest physical heist in American history, but he couldn't outrun a single dirty dish. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the vault, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories of the heists, scams, and financial mysteries that shaped America.